Hi, this is Vinay, and today's video is about cyber resilience. Faster, cheaper digital technologies are delivering an unprecedented array of social and economic benefits, and the process of digitizing and connecting isn't slowing down. It's introducing a whole range of new risks from a variety of known and unknown sources. No surprises then that the business and government leaders place cybersecurity high on their agenda. But it's not just security that matters. In order to increase benefits and minimize the harms in the digital landscape, leaders should be considering a cyber resilience as a strategic goal. Now, coming to what is cyber resilience. So, the total organizations perceive that significant threats exist to the network systems on which the economy relies. But organizations can develop tools and policies to avoid, absorb, and mitigate them. The idea of resilience in its most basic form is an evaluation of what happens before, during, and after a digitally networked system encounters a threat. Resilience should not be taken synonymous with recovery. It is not event specific. It occurs over the long term and should be included in overall business or organizational strategies. The spectrum of resilience described in the 2012 World Economic Forum white paper outlines the ability of systems and organizations to withstand cyber events. The resilience in this context means the preparation that an organization has made with regards to threats and vulnerabilities, and the defenses that have been developed and the resources available for mitigating a security failure after it happens. There is a multitude of ways in which an organization or a society can be considered resilient, but a common denominator is the inclusion of deep understanding of a risk in strategy planning. For cyber risk, this means going beyond information technology and making risk evaluation a normal part of strategy. Normalization is the key. Cyber risk should be viewed like any other risk that an organization must contend with in order to fulfill its goals. Now here is the data loss barometer. 18.5 million people have been affected by PC theft. 75% of data loss incidents in retail were attributed to hacking, and 96% of data loss incidents in media were attributed to hacking. Now, where are we going wrong? Why is cyber resilience important? So, leaders of business and government need to think about resilience for two reasons. First, one, by doing so, they can avoid all the catastrophic failure threatened by an all or nothing approach to cyber risk. And second, it ensures that the conversation goes beyond information technology. The first point, that a long-term view and durability are key factors in ensuring cyber resilience, doesn't need further explanation. A plan that encompasses actions and outcomes before, during, and after the emergence of threat will generally be superior to a plan that only considers one incident at a time. The second point, that leaders must be brought in the conversation, merits more attention of these types. It is vital to our economic and societal resilience that we think about information security. We think beyond information security to the overall network resilience that ensures we can deal with existing risks and face new risks that will come with such things such as artificial intelligence or the Internet of Things or quantum computing. In order to ensure long-term cyber resilience, organizations must include in their strategic planning the ability to iterate based on evolving threats from rapidly disruptive technologies. At this time, there are clear and tested strategies for ensuring the security of data. There's also information available to organizations to adopt. The risks of taking a mere information security approach is that once a technology such as the Internet of Things is fully implemented, the risk profile of a company can be looked at anew and will likely proceed in an ad hoc fashion. This could be ineffective. By promoting an overall cyber resilience approach, long-term strategy is a continual strategic conversation involving both technology and strategic leaders with an organization. The cyber resilience approach ensures greater readiness and less repetition, making it on the whole more efficient and very more effective. So why is resilience rather than security? Security, in contrast to resilience, can be seen as binary. Either something is secure or it isn't. It is often relegated to a single limited technical function, keeping unauthorized users out of the network system. While there are many broader definitions of cybersecurity, there is a difference between, and there's also a thin line between the access control of cybersecurity and the more strategic, longer-term thinking cyber resilience should evoke. Additionally, since vulnerability in one area can compromise the entire network, resilience requires a conversation focused on the systems rather than the individual organization. So how does an organization become cyber resilient? For network technologies, vulnerability in one node is that it can affect security and resilience of the network. Therefore, resilience is best considered in the context of a public good or commons. So the aim is to reduce organizational risk. So first we have to examine and determine the risk level, which will be equal to the risk assessments. So there are various terms of risk assessments, such as risk assumption. With appropriate or due diligence, risk can be assumed. Risk elevation is hiring the lower levels of the risk into another level. It's elevating to another level. Risk avoidance is completely eliminating the process that could actually cause a risk. Risk limitation is managing the risk limit exposure by putting a controls to the limit, or the risk planning is future planning for all the risks and the event schedule, or risk transference with the management of transfer of risk by using other operations to compensate for a loss. So vulnerability in one node can probably affect the security and resilience of the entire network. Therefore, resilience is probably a good term for this. Since cyber resilience is really a matter of risk management, there isn't a single point at which it becomes intense. Instead, it comes from building a strategy and working to ensure that the risk transfer mechanisms that work for the traditional threats are also brought into bear on new cyber threats. So who's responsible? It's really a question of strategy rather than tactics. Being resilient requires those at highest levels of companies, organization, or government to recognize the importance of avoiding and mitigating risk. While it is everyone's responsibility to cooperate in order to ensure greater cyber resilience, leaders who set the strategy for an organization are ultimately responsible and really have increasingly been held accountable for including cyber resilience in organization strategy. So where can we get more information for these? According to the risk transference, management transfer of the risk by using the other options is usually like purchasing an insurance policy, so to avoid more and more risks in the future. So there are 6 more phases to this. One should be organizational readiness. Second is situational awareness. Third is cyber defense, detection, mitigation and containment, and recovery. So the good news is that by building a cyber resilience action plan, it's a step-by-step process that any company willing to commit the time and resources can accomplish. And after ensuring you have good system hygiene, the next step is to put up the right group together to work out the details. This working group include a cross-functioning collection of senior managers, like from sales to HR, all the different wing, each of whom is willing to meet regularly to discuss cybersecurity, monitor evolving threats, and participate in modeling and analyzing hypothetical attacks. Once formed, the group can begin to map out the plan, first accessing the company's cyber risk profile. A recent study from Verizon has concluded that 95% of cyber attacks can be analyzed in terms of 9 basic patterns. A thorough study of the patterns, facilitated perhaps by the help of an external cybersecurity expert, can help the group determine the types of attacks their company is most vulnerable to. Preventive measures can be tailored to these patterns. To go deeper and dig deeper, the team should then develop hypothetical scenarios based on the most relevant patterns identified to help identify in detail possible attack nodes, targets, vulnerabilities, and impacts. There is no need for an it's in fact determined to require a great precision in this exercise that no one can know for a certain ahead of event how much damage a successful data breach will cause in terms of lost revenue, reputational harm, or stock price declines. All that is needed are rough estimates that can give enough sense of scale and types of potential harm to enable the team to put together a risk mitigation strategy. Such strategy will involve steps to mitigate and also contaminate the damage of relevant targets. For example, if a company determines that its greatest threat is malware installations in point of sale software systems directed by domestic operatives via vendor access rights, then it might consider investments in end-to-end encryptions, application whitelisting, AWL, or FIM, which is file integrity monitoring, system access software, and all the vendor access law. It's important to realize that cyber attack cannot be fully mitigated. In this instance, having a cyber insurance coverage in place should make all this difference in the way your company performs the next days. So fortunately, this type of attack has been rare. There have been many various attacks, and all of them have the potential, which is growing more likely, or which gives current geopolitical instabilities, especially for MNCs with the exposure and more sensitive countries around the globe. Now let us have a look at what is the ability to operate the business process in various scenarios, both taking the normal and the adverse without any adverse outcomes. Now what resilient businesses have? Resilient businesses have strong, secure and processes and systems, strong controls, a very strong risk culture, and also automated process. What resilience prevents is probably downtime, loss of service, theft, fraud, loss of data, or any impact to reputation or brand. So this, according to Cisco, there are some essential elements of a reliable cyber resilience strategy. And this strategy is probably on the first element of the strategy is get the board on board. Board level support is essential, and corporate executives must be prepared to make the case for it. Board directors should be asking the leaders about people and processes as well as technology and policy to ensure a comprehensive cyber resilience strategy. People and processes should be asking the questions that are they evolving our culture, the talent, the skills, training, adaptability, the technology and policies? Have they performed through a cyber risk assessments for the use of the technology, the current level of cyber risk, or the potential business impact? The security approach, digitalization, and organization of and its board must understand that the business will digitize. Now there are 5 strategies or 5 detection plans for the NIST cybersecurity framework. The NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and these standards are on preparing, identifying, protecting, detecting, responding, and recovering. Now, identify is organizations must develop an understanding of their environment to manage cybersecurity risks to systems, assets, data, and capabilities to comply with this function. It is essential to have full visibilities into your digital and physical assets and also the interconnections, defined roles, and the responsibilities. protect should be organizations must develop and implement the appropriate safeguards to limit or contain impact of potential cybersecurity event. To comply, your organization must control access to digital and physical assets, provide awareness, education, and training, put processes into place to secure data, maintain baselines of work, configuration, and operations to repair systems components in a timely manner. Detect is probably where organizations must implement the appropriate measures to quickly identify cybersecurity events. The adoption of continuous monitoring solutions that detect anomalous activity and other threats to operational continuity is required to comply with this function. Your organization must have visibility into its networks to anticipate a cyber incident and have all the information at hand to respond to one. Continuous monitoring and threat hunting are effective ways to analyze and prevent cyber incidents in the ICS networks. The fourth step, the properly respond and recover, are the most important parts when it comes to cyber resilience. Linking these should be very important of that. The response step is basically, should a cyber incident occur, organizations must have the ability to contain the impact. To comply, your organization must craft a response plan, define communication lines among the appropriate parties, collect and analyze information about the event, perform all required activities, and eradicate the incident and incorporate lessons learned to revise the response strategies. The response pillar addresses activities that will probably accelerate remediation and contain the impact of an attack once detected. There are many solutions and services available to help. Much of what it is need involves people and processes internal to your business. Next, coming to the recover step in this NIST. Recover steps is where the organization should properly develop and implement effective capabilities, and by responding to it, plan and implement a security incident security response team and define roles and responsibilities, managing risks, creating a plan, determine how response processes and procedures will be maintained and tested, coordinate communication response activities, and understand how analysis and mitigation activities will be performed. Devise a system where ensures lessons learned are incorporated to future response activities. Now let's look at the recover strategies. So this strategy involves developing systems and plans to restore data, services, and after an attack. Even if we respond quickly to a cyber breach, there may be consequences for people, processes, and systems. An effective recovery depends on a clear and a thorough recovery. Recovering also includes developing and implementing systems which are of the use, and also restoring the data and services that have been impacted during the cyber attack, ensuring that your disaster recovery plans cover major cyber attacks as well as system failures and natural disasters. Some of the cyber attack scenarios are ransomware attacks, website hijack, remote access compromise, network level infection, and business email compromise. Now, before the business email compromise, the framework guidance provides some sector stakeholders and which supports timely recovery to normalize operations to reduce the impact from a cybersecurity event. Examples of outcome categories with this function can include recovery planning, improvements, and communications. Understanding and using the framework to assess and improve the cyber resilience, access the current and target cybersecurity postures, identifying gaps in the existing cybersecurity risk management program, identifying current sector specific tools and resources to map to the framework. So these are the steps where they have been included, and I hope it was a pleasure for you to listen to all the cyber resilience steps and the various attacks and the steps where companies have been following or have to be followed. Thank you so much for listening him.